If I sound ill, that is because I am ill. Those damn Australians giving me that flu. Okay, so if you saw my last video, you will know that I got a large haul of comics. I read them over the last few weeks, over the last few days, and now I'm going to give you my thoughts and opinions on them. So, the worst of the books that I read over the last few days was definitely the 2 issues of Falcon. Falcon issue 2 and 3. And that's because they do a lot to achieve nothing, if that makes sense. By the beginning of the 2nd issue and the end of the 3rd issue, they end up in the same place that they started in. Like, they maybe learn a bit more about what's going on in Chicago and, like, the black hearts behind everything, but they don't do anything to stop it. And most of the heavy lifting is done by Dr. Voodoo, which is what I thought was going to happen, because how can Falcon take down a mystical threat when all he is a guy that can fly? But I think my main gripe is this guy right here. I can't remember his name, but he's the most annoying character in any comic book I've read. I think there's been a lot of talk about the early Chip Zdarsky work and him trying to be funny too much, and they do the same thing with this character, and it just doesn't work. The jokes fall flat almost as soon as they start to stand up. Like, there was nothing there that I found genuinely funny. Now, that might be just my takeaway of it, but I don't know. The one interesting thing is that we do see a little bit of, like, plot and character progression with Falcon himself, and I guess that's the main point. But where we see him at the end of issue 3, he's in a very vulnerable position. And I don't mean, like, mentally vulnerable, I mean he's in hell. Like, Mephisto has his soul. But at the end of the day, it was a fairly disappointing read. And I don't like the fact that Marvel is treating all their lesser superheroes so badly. Apart from Iron Fist. Iron Fist is amazing. But everything else just falls flat on its face. Next up is Luke Cage. The only reason that Luke Cage is above Falcon is because of the villain. The Ringmaster is given a lot of character time, more character time than Luke Cage is. That might be a good thing or a bad thing. But when it's issue 167, you really know enough about the character so that it can take time and develop the villain. And if they are ending at issue 170, which all the solicitations have said that they are, then I think it's looking to be that issue 170 might be the best issue so far, because everything else leading to it has been so bad. But maybe I'm overreacting. Luke Cage isn't a bad book. Certainly not a lot happens, and it does have the same problem as Falcon, where they do a lot but achieve nothing. Where they are at the end of issue 2 is where they are at the beginning of issue 1. And where they are at the end of issue 3 is where they are at the beginning of issue 1. Because at the beginning of every issue, it's like a reset button. Luke Cage has forgotten who he is, where he is, and by the time that he starts to remember who he is, where he is, what he is, the off switch happens, and then the ringmaster wipes his memory again. And that's where issue 3 takes place. Maybe it could be good storytelling if it was handled better, but it just feels like we're retreading the same 3 issues, just in a different part of the prison. And with that being said, the artwork as well is, I've kind of gotten used to the art, but I still can't call it good art. It's just like that there is just terribly drawn. And it's just, some panels can make Luke Cage look physically imposing. Some panels make him look like the old guy from Toy Story 2. It's hard to explain. I guess you need to read it for yourself. But I wouldn't recommend it. The only reason I'm finishing it off is because it's only got 2 issues left. And hopefully those 2 issues get better. Next is Despicable Deadpool. With this, I'm gonna review each independent issue, because this is where the comics get better gradually. That being said, Despicable Deadpool issue 289 is absolutely useless. There is no plot forwarding in this issue. Nothing gets resolved. Nothing really advances the plot in any way. It's just Deadpool and Cable go back in time to where Strife saves Deadpool's family, and they try to kill Strife before Strife can give Deadpool the moral dilemma. Strife decides, fuck this, I'm gonna kill you, I'm gonna kill your family, and I'm gonna bring dinosaurs and vampires, and you're gonna fight them all. And then the apocalypse happens, and then you go back to the original timeline. That's the end of the issue. At the end of the issue, they start right at the beginning of the issue again, and I'm not even saying that to exaggerate. It's literally like they go forward in time, and then Cable, at the time where the apocalypse is happening, opens up a portal to where Cable is at the beginning of the issue and says, don't do it, it's a trap. So, yeah. Despicable Deadpool issue 289 is really just a filler issue to, like, run for the trade, I guess. Despicable Deadpool issue 290 really doesn't leave a lot to the imagination, especially with that cover. But when it says this issue Cable dies, this is a slight spoiler, because it's not Cable. It's not the main 616 Cable. But even then, the main 616 Cable isn't really in the main 616 universe all that often. all that often. But yeah, basically what happens is Cable and Deadpool go to the future. They find this hall of cables, and there's like a Mr. Fantastic cable, there's a cable that's like Namor, there's all these types of cables, and they are looking to find the cable that was in issue 2 that our 616 cable was talking to on the phone. They want to take his heart and give that back to Strife. They eventually do. And what happens after that? And when they kill this other cable, it's not like it's a heartfelt thing. It's an off joke, which I guess is why Despicable Deadpool is slow. They don't really take any chances with how to flesh out Deadpool as a character, which is disappointing because Jerry Duggan has done that so well in the past. Really well in the past, actually. I guess it is just really disappointing to see a good writer produce something so bad. Yeah. Speaking of something so bad, Despicable Deadpool issue 291. That cover, look at it. Look at that cover. What the hell is that? I mean, seriously. I get Jerry Duggan is trying to take the mick, but really, well, thank God what's inside is better than the cover. It's the best issue of Despicable Deadpool yet, and that's not really saying a lot, but it's actually got climactic action. The climax of the story is something I was genuinely interested in. But it's like the one issue that looked like it was going to be the worst with that cover was actually the issue that I thought, damn, Deadpool's getting better. Because when it has panels like that, double page spreads like that, it's actually, I'm like, damn, this is good. Why didn't Jerry Duggan write like this in the first place? They have emotion here. There's actually there's actually a reason behind Deadpool doing all this work for Strife. There's actually, and they give valid reason without just saying, oh, your family's gonna die if you don't do this. Like, they actually show how willing Strife is to just kill Deadpool's family. And the ending, I don't know if I want to spoil the ending, but I'm going to spoil the ending anyway. Deadpool receives a phone call from Bob from Hydra that says that where he states that the rest of Hydra is trying to recapture or to free evil Steve Rogers from prison, which confuses me because I thought he died. I didn't realise he was still alive. But anyway, next up is Amazing Spider-Man, issue 793. We're reaching issue 800, which is probably going to be some really big, double-sized, double-priced issue. But that's not going to be in the story arc. That's going to be like several story arcs time. But this was good. This was genuinely good. Like, the Venom Inc. storyline so far has just been like Lee Price being Lee Price and trying to build an empire with the Venom symbiote. And as we go through this, we see like the two parts of comic books that you really need is a good story that you can follow that isn't confusing, and at least one panel where the title character is being awesome. And this has both of those. The story's nothing to write home about, granted, but it's how they choose to tell the story that really makes it interesting for me. Granted, Amazing Spider-Man hasn't been the best thing that I've read, or anything to write home about. It's been quite bad, actually, in some places. But here it's actually finally picking back up. Pages like that, for instance. So basically what's happened is Lee Price was Venom for a short while, and then Eddie Brock got the Venom suit back, and Lee Price has been in prison. Eventually Lee Price got out of prison and stole the symbiote off of someone called Maniac. After that, Lee Price discovered that he can transfer the symbiote to different people by spitting on them. Which I get is disgusting, but still. So he finds the Black Cat, who is now the new kingpin of crime, and her lackeys, which consist of Hammerhead, Scorpion, D-list villains like that, and basically puts the symbiote in all of them. And now he controls all of them. And in the last issue we saw that he had Flash Thompson, who is Agent Venom, who is now Agent Anti-Venom, and Spider-Man, chained up, about to be beaten to death. And what he did to Spider-Man is he took control of his mind. And with Anti-Venom, he can't do that because, well, he's the Anti-Venom. So he's just going to burn him alive, basically. Until Maniac, who has some kind of satanic powers, I don't know the character, she may have satanic powers, she uses them in this, so I guess so. But basically, she saves Anti-Venom, and Spider-Man, who's been mind-controlled by Lee Price, is trying to get the attention of Black Cat and Venom. He ends up getting the attention of Anti-Venom. They have a fight on top of the Daily Bugle, which is the part where I saw the hero being the badass, and so on and so forth. Venom looks genuinely threatening here. Genuinely threatening. I'll try and find the panel or the page. But just the way that Ryan Stegman draws Venom. Like, he looks like someone that you don't want to meet in a dark alley. Yeah, I'm excited to see how they finish it off, because it's only got 2 parts left, and then we're back into regular story arcs. A pleasant surprise for me was Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange issue 381. I thoroughly enjoyed this. The artwork is pretty mediocre, but the story from Donny Cates is great. So Doctor Strange has lost the title of Sorcerer Supreme, and it's been given to Loki, the son of Odin, frost giant person, and now Loki is Doctor Strange, and Stephen Strange is a veterinarian. And here's what I mean with the artwork. There's something that should seem like big and spectacle. Should probably be better drawn by one of those big spectacle artists like Ryan Stegman or David Marquez, is by Gabriella Walter. It just seems like flat, and I know we haven't seen much in the way of action, and we haven't seen Loki or Doctor Strange use their magic or their magical powers that much during the course of these last 2 issues. But that's the kind of thing that I want to see happen later on. I think this is the kind of story where you really need to build up to that, and the whole writing or like plotting for the trade thing really doesn't need to take effect, because of the whole, it is so interesting to see how Loki got here and how Doctor Strange got to where he is. That's interesting. Like, I find myself genuinely wanting to read more. So basically, because Doctor Strange is a veterinarian now, but he still has his magical powers, he has actually devised a way to make one specific animal, his pet dog, speak English. And these 2 characters develop a bond, kind of like the bond that Stephen Strange had with Wong. Like it's a very touching relationship that they have. But eventually Loki, not by purpose, but completely accidentally, Loki winds up killing this dog. Here you go. Loki winds up killing the dog, which is where this kind of reminds me of the plot to John Wick, in a way, where Stephen Strange is getting revenge on someone for killing his dog. I just find that funny. That's Doctor Strange getting revenge on someone for killing his dog. And eventually, by the end of the issue, he tracks down Robert Reynolds. And those of you who know who Robert Reynolds is, you know that he is the Sentry. Practically one of the most powerful characters in Marvel Comics. He's basically the Superman of Marvel Comics. He doesn't do much, he only appears in like the last page. But still. So yeah, well, I liked Doctor Strange. Quite a lot, actually. Captain America. Issue 696. We're reaching issue 700. And it was entertaining. I liked it. Now, a lot of people have gripes with the villain being like Dick Dastardly from the whatever. But yeah, panels like that are what saves a comic like this. Although it's like a one and done story where the villain is kind of shows up and goes, and he's beaten really easily. It does show kind of how much like Captain America wants to be like the everyman. He wants to be like everyone else, but he isn't allowed to because of his celebrity status. And it's surprising to see the backlash from Secret Empire, because there is none. At least not in this book. In Falcon there is, but that's to do with the plot purposes, and that's to do with Blackheart trying to take over his mind. But here there is none, which is refreshing. And I think it's because it's Mark Waid on writing, not Nick Spencer. But whereas every other book is trying to follow on from Secret Empire and from the events of Secret Empire, Captain America's tried to distance itself from that, which I feel is the best thing to do. If you have a storyline or an event that isn't really well received, then distance yourself from it. Now, granted, usually I would not like art like that. Usually I wouldn't. But because it fits the story so well, with the whole Captain America wanting to rebuild his reputation, travelling around the United States, trying to clean up the mess that someone else made in his body, it really works for me. And I guess Chris Samney is one of the only artists that can do that. And because he's worked with Mark Waid so much, I feel like the two just click. Whenever they work together, they know what they're doing. Incredible Hulk issue 710 relayed my fears of what it was going to be. I was very afraid that they were going to retread new ground on this. Luckily they didn't. Luckily they're trying to do something different, and they're distancing themselves from the first thing, from the first one. The first time that they did the Planet Hulk storyline. Yes, we do have the arena battles, yes, we do have Hulk smashing stuff, but that isn't really the importance and where the gravity of it comes from. The gravity of the whole book comes from the individual characters that are in this, warbound with Hulk. I don't like calling it a warband because it's not. It really isn't. Like, they're the people that Hulk is trying to save. And usually in books like this, they focus on the hero and not the people being saved. And I think that if you want to make an interesting story where we're supposed to care for the people that the Hulk is saving, the people that might die if the Hulk doesn't win, then if we don't care about those characters, like the B characters, like the characters that usually are left behind in stories like this, then I feel like the writer's done something wrong. But because it puts so much time and effort into making those characters as interesting as the main character, or more so, then if they do eventually kill one, which they eventually do in one of these issues, in issue 711, then it does have some emotional resonance. It does actually resonate with the reader. And we want Hulk to win, not just because of Hulk, but because of all these other characters that Hulk is trying to save. And they do the same thing with the villain as well. Like, they give you a reason why the villain is like he is. Granted, it's not a very complex reason. It's basically, oh, I was a criminal before the previous Red King was dethroned. I will be a criminal again now that I am the Red King, and now I have the power. I can use it however I want. It's like any generic villain, basically, but the way that they do it is they have, it's kind of like a Wizard of Oz thing. Like, all the while Hulk is in these gladiatorial arenas, the Red King is an imposing threat, and then when the Hulk and the Red King finally meet each other, they are the same size. They're probably an even match, if not the Hulk is stronger. And that is, I feel like that's the best way to do a villain, is to show him as imposing, as, like, to show him with a vulnerability, to show a villain with a vulnerability, and that's very difficult to do, because the best villains do have vulnerabilities. Dr. Octopus has the vulnerability as he's not 100% evil. Like, the Man is just being controlled by the Sentinels, and then sometimes the Man comes out. With the Vulture, it's his old age. With Green Goblin, it's his insanity. With all these characters, they have a flaw. They have a weakness. They aren't seen as an ultimate threat. They're seen as a threat, but a threat that has a flaw. And I find flawed villains more intriguing. Now, the Red King isn't intriguing in any way. It's just the way he's written is very much like they wanted to make him intriguing. But then they realised, oh, we're going to have 5 issues and then he's going to be gone. But we see that he's very much afraid of Amadeus Cho, the Hulk. Also, double page spreads like that help this to be an amazing book. It really is. Like, I was very scared by the first issue and how similar it was to the first time that they did Planet Hulk, that I just thought, oh gosh, they're retreading old ground. And then, yeah. And then we see, but they're not. But of course they have to have, like, someone cameo. And who better to cameo than Thor? A friend from work. But yeah, it's a very good book, and I'm very intrigued to see where they go next. And now I'm actually hopeful to see what Greg Pak can do when retelling the story of World War Hulk with Amadeus Cho. And he's actually turned me on to liking Amadeus Cho as well. I didn't like Amadeus Cho as the Hulk before. I was just like, it's not my Hulk. You can't take Bruce Banner away from me. But now, it's like, wow, written an interesting character. I'll read more. And finally, probably the best book I read this week was Deadpool vs. Old Man Logan. That's not necessarily because it's a very emotional book. It's not because it's a very, like, plot-heavy book. It's just fun. It's just mindless fun. Like, I feel like it's given the wrong name. It's not Deadpool vs. Old Man Logan. It's Deadpool and Old Man Logan team up. Because they don't fight. They only fight really in that first issue. And then, yeah. Here we go. But yeah, every page is like that. Every page has, the book is 100% action, and they actually go somewhere. Like, we see a little bit of emotional, like, resonance with the characters. Like, these two characters are lab rats. They have been modified to fit the needs of someone else. And I feel like that's important. And we do see a very vulnerable side of Deadpool. Something that's missing from the main Deadpool title. And I feel like the writer of this, what's his face, Declan Shalvey, is definitely a better Deadpool writer than Jerry Duggan, even though Jerry Duggan has done so much greatness before. He's just losing steam. But here, Deadpool's written well, Old Man Logan is written really well. They just get the characters, and they're not even the main focus, and they still steal the show. Granted, the villains are kind of like the villains in Logan. They're just there to be a villain. But I think the greatness of the issue and the two issues definitely comes from the back and forth between Deadpool and Old Man Logan. But basically, the basic gist of the plot is there's a new Omega level mutant who can teleport objects in different places. So basically, Logan and Deadpool are both like in a kind of contest. Well, Deadpool kind of makes it a contest to see who can save this girl the best. They eventually end up teaming up to save her, and it's just amazing. Like, we find out that this girl doesn't necessarily want to be saved, and basically it's all just action from there. Now, when Logan and Deadpool eventually find out where, because the girl ends up getting taken, and the scene where she's getting like tested is very similar in the vein to where Deadpool gets his powers in the Deadpool movie. It's very similar to that. And yeah, it's just genuinely well written. Just everything really flows, and it makes sense why the characters are acting in the way that they are. Like the girl that's being captured. Like, obviously she's not going to trust Deadpool and Old Man Logan because it's Deadpool and Old Man Logan. Like, would you trust two people that look like that? Would you trust them too? I wouldn't. But by the end of the 3rd issue, something very interesting happens. The three characters get a mutual trust in each other, but Logan gets captured by the villain, and what this mutant does, what this young mutant does, is something I didn't think was possible. She teleports the adamantium skeleton from Logan into Deadpool so that we get Pulverine. I didn't make that up. That's what the solicitations for the next issue says. They call him Pulverine, which is the worst name I've ever heard. But yeah, those are my thoughts and opinions for this week, for the big haul that I did. I'll be back with another video, ASAP. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is coming back. I know it's back in the USA. Like, it was back a few weeks ago in the UK, in the USA. But I'm in the UK. I don't get shows as early as you do. I apologise. So, until then, peace.